Hi, welcome back. I'm Grayson.
I'm Caleb.
I'm Dominic.
And I'm Isaiah, and this is Fireside Friday Nights.
Welcome back to Fireside Friday Nights. In our last episode, we talked about the fatherlessness crisis and how it was plaguing our country, and it sparked a small discussion among us about abortion and the pro-life, pro-choice debate. And being that this is a hot topic issue, I felt that this was something we should talk about from, I guess, a biblical standpoint, given that that's what our beliefs are founded upon. But before we get into it, make sure that you like the podcast, subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Twitter, and wherever you get your podcasts, and also turn on notifications. So, I guess to start off, what are your guys' opinions on the pro-life, pro-choice debate?
Well, I think we're all pro-life, given that we're all Christian.
Yeah, okay, so, I don't know, I'll let you guys jump in here, but, so, the biblical debate for pro-life versus pro-choice, we should not be pro-choice. I mean, that's the one problem with it. They're saying pro-choice. It's not pro-choice, it's pretty much pro-abortion, but they market it as pro-choice. They're giving the woman the right to choose. Biblically, I don't remember what commandment number it is, but do not murder, okay? Abortion is murder. If you believe that the fetus is actually a person. What are your guys' opinions on that, I guess?
Well, it is scientifically proven that a fetus is a baby, and so killing it would be murder, which the Bible, of course, says is wrong.
Yeah. But the people pushing this in our Constitution, in our political system, are saying that the human rights don't belong to this baby.
Yeah, a lot of them would say that it's not really a baby until it's born, but I don't know if you guys have anything else to say about that.
You know, this just got me thinking. I saw this comedian. His name is Bill Burr, and he made a very good point.
Pro-choice always made sense to me because I don't like people telling me what to do. And I always just like, it's your body. Who am I to tell you what to do with your body? So that always made sense, all right? However, I still think you're killing a baby. See? That's where it gets weird. It's not a baby yet. That's what they say, which may or may not be true. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. But I'll tell you, my gut tells me that doesn't make sense. It's not a baby yet. That would be like if I was making a cake and I poured some batter in a pan and I put it in the oven, and then 5 minutes later you came by and you grabbed the pan, you threw it across the floor. You just ruined my birthday cake. And then you were like, well, that wasn't a cake yet. It's like, well, it would have been. If you didn't do what you just did, there would have been a cake in 50 minutes.
Okay,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a really good point.
Like I say, yeah.
So he's saying he was all for pro-choice. Yeah, okay, yeah, I can understand. Oh yeah, it's the woman. The woman is carrying the baby for 9 months. Okay, she's doing work.
Right.
She's putting in the hours. But yeah, it's still a baby no matter what happens. If you take in the middle of it, it's still a baby. If all these miscarriages, they refer to it as a fetus, or that's also a thing to mention is that they will call miscarriages abortions.
Yeah, but there's a big difference between it because in a general standpoint, a miscarriage is unintentional, while an abortion
spontaneous.
would be. Yeah, an abortion would be more intentional.
Well, yeah, from the category that we're saying abortion is an intentional murdering of a baby.
Right.
Yeah.
And so my mom, she miscarried before, and yes, that's a baby. I don't care what you say. I don't know how far along
my
she
mom
was.
had a miscarriage as well.
It's
So
something
has
that
mine.
has happened, and you're stopping what will become, and it will become a baby.
Yeah, if you're saying cake batter is different
Right.
than a fully baked cake, well, and that little in-between stage where it's kind of like sticky glue texture, it's still a cake no matter what. You put in the hours to make the cake. You put in the time. You made the batter, and it's a cake no matter what. Yeah, that's it's a really good point, and I think it's funny because the joke.
Even though it's in a comedian standpoint, it's
Yeah,
still a
the
good
joke is a funny
Yeah,
joke.
the point remains the same.
and it has weight to it. It actually means something.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing is that the 14th Amendment. So the reason people fight for pro-choice is because the 14th Amendment says no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of the citizens of the United States. And, okay, so we can't control what people do. I think that the government should not be allowed to control what you can do. I think we can agree with that, right?
Yeah.
So, and we talked about pro-gun stuff. The government if the government doesn't allow you to own guns, then they're limiting it. Okay, that's fine. But human rights is what this is talking about. So in Roe v. Wade, when the Supreme Court decided that the right to privacy implied in the 14th Amendment protected abortion as a fundamental right, I don't know how much I agree on that, because if it's a fundamental right, but you're killing a human being that's not a U.S. citizen yet because they're not born. I actually have a clip from a podcast from the Timcast, and he debates a guy who's pro-abortion, and it's really funny because he throws him into a loophole, and the guy realizes that he's lost, and he fully admits it right on camera.
You believe that the moment after the child is outside of the birth canal, that they are now endowed with human rights.
Yes.
However, when they are inside of the mother, literally anything you do to them is acceptable because they're inside of the mother.
Oh, no, I don't think anything is acceptable, but I think the mother should still have the choice, ultimate authority over what happens to her body.
But there's a child inside of her body.
Hold on.
Not
What
her.
about
Yes.
meth?
Like, should she be allowed to do meth?
Yeah.
I think if someone is doing meth while they're pregnant, that it is completely acceptable for something like, I don't know what the name of the service is in the United States.
Child services?
I guess
Child
DCFS
services?
would be.
Whoa,
yeah.
it's her body, though.
Yeah, it's her body.
If she wants to do meth, what's the big deal?
The big deal is that she's intentionally trying to kill a child.
Hold on there a minute.
Yeah, and I see where we're going.
I don't understand what you're saying.
So with that, so he's a pro-choice believer got thrown into this debate, and the guy who was leading the debate, he knew what he was saying, and he knew that he could get him there. He said, wait. And the guy threw himself into a hole.
He realized that he messed up.
So doing meth is intentionally hurting the child if she chooses to do meth.
And that's wrong.
But going in there and ripping the baby out, is it? I guess that's what they're saying. And he knows he's wrong because he's like, yeah, but I see where you're going. He didn't back himself up. He didn't say, I see where you're going and I know how to refute this. The Society of the Protection of Unborn Children says they have a bunch of 50 questions that people ask about abortion. And they say, when does human life begin? Human life begins at fertilization, also known as conception, when the sperm penetrates the egg cell. And then the single-celled embryo creates a zygote, and once the zygote is present, because the two cells fuse together, if the fertilization does not occur, the sperm and the egg cell just die. So that's not a baby. But once they fuse, that is fertilization, that is conception. That's when the baby turns into a baby cell that's going to turn into a baby.
Right.
Yeah.
And so if you're saying that the little cell right there is not a baby, okay, when does the zygote turn to the fetus? Whatever they're gonna say. Okay, vehicular manslaughter. Or I guess not even vehicular, just when someone kills. So if a man went out and he killed a pregnant woman, or he somehow did something that killed the baby and not the woman, it would still be. It would either be double homicide, or it'd be murder of the baby, no matter what. And they'd say it was murder. The court system would say that. The same court system that would rule and say, well, it's not a baby yet. And even science, ChatGPT. I mean, I have a bunch of stuff to say about AI that we could talk about in a later episode. But I thought it'd be funny as I asked ChatGPT what's the best argument for abortion, just to see what would happen. And ChatGPT says, the best argument typically revolves around the belief that human life begins at conception, which as Christians we can believe. According to Jeremiah 1:5, it's before I formed you in the womb I knew you, before you were born I set you apart. Or Psalm 139:13-16, for you created my inmost being, you knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. My fame was not hidden from you when I was in the secret place, when I was woven together in the deep depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. And we can say, okay, life begins at conception. So that's what ChatGPT says. And then it says, therefore, terminating a pregnancy is an equivalent to ending a human life, which we can agree with. This is where it says it though. This perspective often stems from religious or moral convictions that prioritize the sanctity of life from the moment of conception. So it says that it's only religious. But then I thought I was like, okay, when does human life begin according to science? So I asked ChatGPT, and ChatGPT goes, according to science, human life begins at conception, which is the moment when a sperm cell fertilizes an egg cell, forming a unique genetic blueprint for a new individual. From a biological standpoint, this marks the beginning of a new human organism's development. Well, I think I debunked the scientific debate behind it.
Well, the argument goes, can you trust ChatGPT?
Well,
Can you trust it?
Well, I would say ChatGPT uses its sources from the internet. So it took the scientific ruling from it. That's what science says. Science says that life begins at conception.
Which we agree with.
Yeah, biblically, we would say that.
Yeah, I'm looking up right now. Literally from the National Institutes of Health. So literally a government website says that life begins at conception. So you can't blame ChatGPT if you think it's wrong. The government itself says that life begins at conception.
But there's all these people saying, "Oh no, it's the women's choice. That's when they get to choose, or they get to choose if they want to be pregnant." This past week, I'll let Isaiah talk about it a little bit, but I had interviewed a pregnancy center. So I was talking to this lady, and she said one of the most common forms of abortion is people who either don't want kids at the moment or don't want any more kids. It's not because it was accidental or rape or incest, which they always are like, but it should be illegal because of rape or incest. That's a low majority of what abortion actually is. It's just because it's unwanted. People don't want it. And I feel like so if it's a mistake, you didn't mean to have a baby, you should still deal with your mistake. You're not just going to get rid of your punishment, okay? I mean, I'm not going to say a child is punishment, but whatever. But that form of abortion is not really a viable argument to say, oh, I just didn't want it, that's why you should abort it. It's a human life. You're still going to deal with it. Here, I'll let you talk about the business if you want to.
Yeah, so the lady we interviewed said that their goal is not to condemn you for wanting to have an abortion. It is to show from a Christian standpoint why to choose life, and in the end, it is in your hands. She also wanted us to mention that they are doing free ultrasounds for anyone 6 to 8 weeks pregnant.
Yeah, I think that's pregnancy resource place in our area, which is Christian. Like, they can't tell you what to do, but they can show you what could be the right way to go. I mean, I don't know how you guys feel, what you guys have seen, but a lot of the debates that I see is because instead of saying pro-choice, people from the pro-life side will argue and say, why are you pro-abortion? All these people are like, I'm not pro-abortion. I believe they should have the right to choose. I mean, ethically, okay, whatever. I think I can agree with you that they should have the right to choose if we're not taking into account that the baby is life.
Yeah.
So then someone who is pro-life would say, so if you believe that killing a baby should be legal just because it's an inconvenience, if I said I wanted to get rid of my child who was already born because they were an inconvenience, you would say it was wrong. So why is it fine before they are born?
Yeah, so basically in the entire pro-choice, pro-abortion debate, as soon as you explain that differentiating between a living human outside the womb and a living human inside the womb, once you explain that there's no difference between the two, their entire argument kind of just falls apart.
Why are they saying that it's different outside the womb and inside the womb? Because pro-life, if you're saying that it's the same all the way through, they're saying it's separate, correct? Like that would be what they'd be saying. And most of these people fighting for pro-choice, a lot of them have not had abortions. Like, I mean, actually, it's funny, but Ronald Reagan had a really good quote. He said, I've noticed that everyone who is for abortion has already been born.
True.
Yeah. So what if you were an unwanted child and your parent just had you, or your parent had abortion? I mean, you wouldn't know if your parent had an abortion because you wouldn't be born. But what if your parent told you, they said, oh yeah, we didn't want you? You'd feel like you were like, why are they fighting for it if they're not going to feel the same thing if they were already born? I mean, so yeah, a lot of people who are fighting for abortion haven't had abortions. That was a thing that I've actually seen. But what other unethical things do people fight for that they don't believe in, like that they haven't done themselves? And if it's unethical, I'm saying unethical as in like murder. Like, yes, I think you should just be like, if you hate that guy, just go out and kill him. Like, is someone gonna say that? No.
No. If you're going from the point of what you should be thinking of as a pro-abortion or pro-choice, like, it should be fine.
Yeah.
Like, you really should. It literally gives you a loophole to say, I can murder anyone I want because they're an inconvenience.
But they're saying that it's because the fetus isn't a person with human rights,
Which,
the 14th Amendment protects if we believe that it's a human
Yeah.
with human rights. And you wouldn't just allow someone to commit murder because someone was an inconvenience.
No.
Like, why do people get arrested for war crimes for assassinations? Because they killed someone because they thought they were an inconvenience. I mean, that's what an assassination would technically
yeah,
be.
that's
But that's not legal. We don't count that because it's a person. And if that's according to the United States Constitution, they can't abridge the privileges or immunities of the citizens of the United States. So they're saying that the citizens have human rights. But if we're saying pro-choice people are just saying that people don't, or that they don't have human rights if they're not born yet.
which doesn't make sense.
And I guess biblically, another verse I was thinking of is we know all people are all, no matter what form of conception, it's a person. Because Genesis
Right.
1:27 says, so God created mankind in his own image. So in the image of God we were created. And male or female, he created them. So it's male or female. I mean, we're not going to get into the full gender debate, but God created the two options, and either way, it's a human being, no matter what.
Yeah.
But he says that no matter what, the baby would be, or the fetus, we can say, is a baby. It's a human that should have human rights. If we would believe that it has human rights as a pro-life standpoint,
Yeah.
which we do. Another one I was thinking of would be Job 31:15, which says, did not he who made me in the womb make them? And he was referring to, I think, the slaves in Israel. I'm not entirely sure on that. I just can't remember. And then he said, did not the same one form us both from within our mothers? So he's talking about God created the people in his own image. God created them.
Yeah, and everyone is equal in God's eyes. Yeah, and actually, we interviewed a retired pediatrician friend of ours, Dr. Hookman, and here's what he had to say. According to the Encyclopedia and Dictionary of Medicine, Nursing, and Allied Health 2003, abortion is the termination of a pregnancy, whether natural or caused artificially, that is accompanied by, results in, or follows the death of the fetus. There are two broad categories for abortion. First, natural or spontaneous abortion, typically called a miscarriage by the general public, and second, induced or artificially caused abortion. Both result in the termination of a pregnancy before the fetus, is capable of a survival outside the uterus. In a miscarriage or spontaneous abortion, some essential element is missing in the mother, placenta, or fetus to sustain the pregnancy to term, and there is little, if anything, a person can do to prevent the death of the fetus. However, in an induced abortion, someone administers medicine or surgery to intentionally terminate the life of the fetus. In the broad sense, miscarriage and abortion are synonymous, so one needs to be clear regarding what he is discussing. Spontaneous abortion or induced abortion. One resource mentioned just dropping the use of the word abortion and using the word miscarriage. If you think about it, miscarriage sounds much nicer than abortion. It's not as ugly, and at least on the surface, makes the discussion of abortion seem more pleasant. And one's belief is at the core of the induced abortion issue. Is a fetus human from the time of conception? Will it achieve humanity at some point during physical development? And is there a sovereign designer? Or is the fetus just a collection of growing cells that can be disposed of at the will and the cry of someone saying, "It's my body"? As David described in Psalm 139, 13 through 16, "For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, when I was woven together in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be." Job pointed out that the one who made him also fashioned his slave. Did not he who made me in the womb make them? Did not the same one form us, both within our mothers? Jeremiah was told by God, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations." Knowing there is a sovereign designer, the Lord of the universe, who designed each person on the face of the earth from conception, I cannot endorse any kind of abortion intended and designed to terminate the life of a fetus.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to Dr. Hookman for that, because I thought it was really funny when I got the email, because if you know the man personally, he's really in depth with his thoughts. He sends me this and he says, "Here's a brief response," and then it's like
it's like 5 paragraphs long.
I was like,
it's because
it's so in depth, and I'm like, that's really good. Thank you for sending that. It's
But
really well thought through.
But knowing him, he could have gone on way more in depth.
Oh yeah, I
on
think he
this.
could.
Yeah,
I think
for sure.
This could
I
have
think
been.
he could have been really good even as a guest to have on.
Yeah.
But okay, so we know that we have his point of view from a pro-life perspective of a man who's been on this earth for many decades, who has experience in the medical field, who was a pediatrician. Okay, let's go off of that. What did he say there that backs it up? So he says that was the same argument we were saying. Is a fetus a human from the time of conception, or is it just a collection of cells in someone else's body that has nothing to do with them? And I think that's actually he said a bunch of the stuff that we actually talked about already. But I guess now we can go into some of the more controversial topics or questions about abortion. So one, actually, it got brought up in a video dropped by Jubilee pretty recently. I always thought it was really funny that it correlated to our video that we're doing right now. But they said, is abortion just a way to allow men to avoid responsibility in the pregnancy? So here, what's your guys' opinions on that first?
I think not only is it that abortion allows men to avoid responsibility, but it also allows women to not have responsibility, because the woman has responsibility for like taking care of the child even in the womb, feeding it and taking care of it. That's why when he said the point, well, what about meth? It's like, okay, so in my understanding of it, when a mom takes anything, or eats anything like a hamburger, the hamburger is not only in the mom's stomach but also fed to the child.
Yeah,
And
nutrition.
it's the same way, like, okay, if they do like smoking, alcohol, or drugs of any sorts, not only does that go into the mom's body, but also goes into the child's body.
Right, and that's why everyone will tell you, don't smoke and don't drink when you're pregnant, because it can really damage the development
But
of
it's
your
my
baby.
body. It's my body. I can do what I want.
So, yeah, that's good. Well, and then I wonder if they're saying more responsibility as in, like, if it wasn't wanted.
Right.
If, like, so the small amount of abortions that are from rape or incest. So let's say
I
not.
didn't want to get into this.
Let's say it was not rape, okay? She did not, the woman consented, and they had made the baby, but then realized they didn't want the baby. Is it just allowing the men to avoid the responsibility? I think yes, and it's also I think it can make the woman also not have responsibility if they both don't want the child, but they made the child together.
Right.
I guess avoiding responsibility is, I guess I've heard the argument of if the parents, it was a hookup or something, and the parent, and so the dad does not live with the mom, and he says he'd rather pay for the abortion than pay child care or for child support. I mean, what, $500, $800 as compared to $90,000 over the child's life?
Right.
I mean, yeah, you're losing the responsibility, but you're still killing a person's life.
If you made the choice, you kind of made the choice to pay that, and morally you should have to pay that, because if you chose to make this child, then if you didn't want to pay for it, you shouldn't have made the choice.
Yeah, and then even going back to the pro-life, pro-choice, ethically, without taking into account that it's a human life at conception, I can understand why abortion would be a thing, like why pro-choice. Okay, the woman can choose if she wants it.
Yeah.
It's still a baby. Either way.
Yeah. So, and then talking about like the father losing responsibility, we talked about in our last episode kind of how much the father impacts your life. So he has a big responsibility in the child's life. And yeah, it's a few $1,000s cheaper to kill the baby, but like you kind of have to live with that forever. Like I killed a human being. Like,
Yeah, what is that? Is it the biggest thing that people regret is
Yeah.
abortion? I don't
It's,
know.
I think
don't
it's
know if
one of
that's
them.
True,
I don't know. if
It's
it is.
definitely one of the top.
If you look it up, it's kind of like divided. Like one website will say a lot of women regret their abortions and a lot of people don't. It's hard to get good data on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay, that's really good to bring up the fathers. Yes, the father's going to be a role model through your life. And if the father's there or the father's just around paying money to help you survive because of a mistake he made, I mean, okay, that's not good. But I guess then that would also continue to, if the father says, hey, I can't support a child, that goes into another question is, can men tell women what to do with their bodies?
Well, I'm pretty sure they can't.
I mean,
They have an influence.
Yeah.
yeah, you can't tell them what to do with their bodies.
They're not slaves. You're
'Cause-
not a master. You can't
Go back
like,
to the 14th
direct.
Amendment, protection of the civil rights of people on or in the United States. Okay.
Which is men
Yeah.
and women.
Yeah, okay. So the men can't say anything to the woman that forces them to do something. But biblically, if you're saying you're giving into your religious beliefs and your religious standpoint, whatever the woman does should align with her beliefs. And that's what I would say is people who are pro-choice but say they're Christians, you have conflicting morals. You can't be pro-life or pro-choice. You can't be pro-choice and be a Christian.
Of course.
And just according to biblical text, like those two
Yeah.
things can't go together.
It's not possible. Like there's no possible way that those two can correlate together.
And I guess how would I say? The Bible says that in the family structure, men have authority over their wives. Okay. It doesn't mean that they tell them what to do all the time. It doesn't mean that they rule over them and say, make me a sandwich. Or that's not what the authority over it's leader helper of the family structure.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, yes, men do not have the ability to tell a woman what to do with her body. So, if a man says go get an abortion and she doesn't, okay, yes. But if she says that she wants to have an abortion and he's pro-life and says you're killing a baby, I mean, it's still in her hands, but it depends on what she's going to do with her choices.
Yeah.
Would he be able to take that to court? I'm not sure how how that would work.
I
I'm trying to think about it.
don't know. Let's call out my lawyer best friend.
Yeah.
I have no idea. Okay, so to move on, I don't think any of us know actually the true things about this. So this is just a discussion. A man gets a woman pregnant. Let's say that he's not married to her, and let's say there's one situation where he's married to her. He's not married to her. She says she wants to kill the baby. He wants to keep it alive. What happens?
Well, going from the pro-choice belief, then she'd get the abortion. There's nothing that unmarried. There's not anything you really can do to stop her because
Yeah.
I think in both scenarios,
yeah.
I don't think he can legally do anything.
So
No.
even if he's the father, actually this is a good question. I actually don't know. If he's the father, okay, so now they're married. Let's say this. They're married. He wants to be a father, and she says, no, I can't do this right now. And she wants to get an abortion. Can he legally do anything? I don't know.
That's a good question.
I mean, yeah.
I don't know either.
Legally, I'm not sure. But ethically, I'm thinking that why don't you just go with it? Because then it would be... Because I know... I think my neighbor had kind of a similar... Maybe not, but it was something... I would say that if the father wants to and the mom doesn't, I'd say keep it. Then I'd say have the father have the responsibility. Because obviously the mother doesn't want to have the responsibility, but the father does.
But she still has to carry it for 9 months.
Yeah.
True.
It's not... Because then, okay, so this, let's say pro-life, but he's saying... But either way, it's her body, her choice. Okay, yeah. He's pro-life, she's pro-choice. She's like, it's my body. Can he do anything? Have you seen anything, Caleb? Have you found anything?
No, I haven't found
so
anything.
If anybody knows, in the comment section below.
I don't think he can do anything legally, and it really all depends on the abortion. Like if it's a married couple, that could ruin their relationship.
Yeah.
So that's, and even an unmarried couple, like they made a big mistake, but that could ruin their relationship, but it's already pretty much.
I mean, as we would
damaged
say, I don't think those. If you're together in a relationship, those conflicting beliefs, I don't know if you should be in a relationship with that person.
Yeah,
if you're
you gotta
that
make sure you
conflicted.
choose the right one.
You have to be discerning in your
course.
choice. The authority from a man over the family, he can't do anything. So I think in our government, in our court system, legally the woman has I guess I don't even think that there's a debate on this. The woman is responsible for her body.
Yeah.
According to the courts, because I guess go back to the 14th Amendment, individual rights of a person, even though she's growing a person.
Yeah.
that the
So
man
I think
created.
it's less the decision of the man and more the decision of the states, because since Roe v. Wade was overturned,
That's true,
it's
that's
up
true.
to the states to decide.
I would.
Oh yeah, I guess because if they're in, how many states are there that are not or that are completely eliminated abortion? I guess we should probably talk about that. I know, so Idaho, North Dakota, South Dakota, Oklahoma, Texas, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, West Virginia, completely illegal to get an abortion. And then severely restricted states, I'm pretty sure it's just like Arizona, Nebraska, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina. So it's illegal except for very, very minor circumstances. And then restricted abortion, there's restrictions pretty much for everything. Just Utah, I know that was the only one. And then some restrictions, Iowa, Wisconsin, Ohio, Pennsylvania. And then mostly accessible and accessible would just be all the other ones.
Yeah,
So
I'm just looking at a map from Center of Reproductive Rights. It's an organization. So most of the ones you said, like the Dakotas, Texas, Oklahoma, a bunch of those southern states, it's illegal to have an abortion. A few states like the Carolinas, Utah, Arizona, Colorado, those states are like hostile is what it says. So I assume that's like it's very restricted. And then there's like not protected states like Virginia and like Puerto Rico. And then there's protected and expanded access in like the West Coast and Kansas and Wyoming and a few New England states. That's probably where it's most legal. So, and I assume that's like the more Democratic states versus
I would
Republican
assume,
states.
especially, well, because it got overturned, so it's in the state's hands. So I wonder when the next state primaries are for like to choose governors, if those laws can change. Then I guess.
I assume it just
So
goes.
say, like, if Texas gets a Democratic governor, then they can change that.
Well, I don't know if the governor themselves can change it. It's got to go through
It's got to
House
go
and
through.
Senate.
That's true. And then I also wonder why it would lean a certain way. I guess it'd just be House majority.
Yeah, it's all up to the House and the Senate, I'm pretty sure. And the governor can just like veto. It's just like president of the entire United States just for specific states.
I guess as we talked about in our guns episode, not always do the governors make the right decisions that
Yeah,
are fully
of course.
constitutional. But yeah, I don't know according to that stuff.
So one thing that we haven't talked about this episode, which I'm kind of surprised about, is adoption. Because that, in my opinion, is probably the best option. Because, let's be honest, a lot of men and women cannot support a baby if it wasn't planned.
Yeah.
And so while a lot of people want to go towards abortion, in my opinion, and from, I assume, all our opinions, because we're all Christians, we're all pro-life, we would say do adoption because you don't have to take care of the baby, but it's not dying. It's still living.
Yeah.
And I know there are plenty of people that are like infertile that would love to have a baby and they can't.
Yeah, it's definitely a much better option than getting an abortion.
Yeah. I mean, that's, and then I guess the adoption thing is she has to carry the baby for 9 months either way.
Yeah, it just
So-
goes back to the my body, my choice kind of argument.
if she doesn't want to, I guess there's multiple camps there. So if she doesn't want to be a parent, then you could go to adoption. If she doesn't want to carry the baby at all, then she's going to go to abortion.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, I say value adoption. If you don't want to be a parent, but you're still willing to carry it for the time, put the baby up for adoption. There's so many people. I mean, your family, Isaiah, does foster care, and those kids, all of those kids are not all of them are necessarily put up for adoption because
No,
of,
they were. Yeah.
it's because of family situations and other things. But the kids who are put up for adoption, those kids are also they need a family, and there's so many families who try to be adoptive parents that don't get in. I don't even know the statistics. I don't even think to talk about that, but
Yeah.
and then I guess the other controversial things that people talk about would be sperm banks and in vitro, but that's for people who actually want to have a baby. So
Yeah.
if you're going with that, if you're saying now instead of abortion, you're talking about being parents, you go to just having it between a married couple, or say this married couple can't have kids, then adoption. Or if you say the man is not fertile, or if the man's sterile, then you say you go to sperm bank or adoption. Or if the woman's barren, then it's in vitro or adoption. I mean, I'm not going to go into
There's tons of other things. I would always say just go to adoption. I would say it's the best option.
Yeah.
adoption's the best option.
Yeah. That
Trademark quote, Caleb.
Yeah, I would definitely say adoption is the best option because like there are so many kids out there that don't have a family. So I would agree 100% with Caleb.
So I'm actually going to be blunt here. Is that I feel like the people who are pro-choice, they just want to have a little fun and then not suffer the consequences. That's what I think.
I'm not going to say you're wrong because I don't think you're wrong.
I'm going to be honest. I don't think it's wrong.
I'm not
we might
gonna
have
say-
to cut it.
Okay, I guess we'll evaluate if we cut this or not. But I'm not gonna say you're wrong. Yes,
No.
because that could be the reason.
There's always different motives. It's different for each
Right.
situation. Different.
That
Yeah.
could be the
people.
reason that the woman is, or that she. This is difficult. Okay, we'll say people who take Plan B or people who take the birth control pill. They're doing it so that they don't have to get pregnant. Okay, man, that's tough. I don't know what to say.
And this is just my opinion. This, it
I
may
mean,
not
that
be
definitely could be the way.
It may not be statistically what it is, but that's just me being ethical, saying like, hey, that's what, because there are options because if you want to be, because didn't you say that it's rare that if some woman got raped that she's gonna have an abortion?
Or that rape and incest abortions are really rare compared to.
Right, she's gonna try her best to even it sucks that the
Well,
situation happened.
Dominic, it might be that she got it. There's just a small amount of rapes in the first place.
Yeah.
That could also
Sure,
be the thing.
yeah.
Where the rapes where she gets pregnant. That could also be the case.
But yeah,
Yeah.
it's I'm just saying like most like that's their number one argument is for pro-choicers is what happens if it's like a rape situation or something like that in which she can't like help the child out, like support the child. She can't support the child like at all. And that's kind of rare.
Yeah, that's why because that's what I
Yeah.
think it is.
And
I think it's just a rare case in the first place that either she gets pregnant or that it happens at all.
Yeah.
That those abortions. I think ethically pro-choice, yes, because if you got raped, it wasn't your choice, and you can't have the baby. But it's still a baby.
Yeah.
Pro-life.
So
okay.
biblically,
Yeah, I
No.
So if I was saying religion aside, ethically, yes, I believe pro-choice is right.
Yeah.
But biblically and morally, as I believe, pro-life is correct because it's still a baby.
yeah.
And people on Earth will say that a fertilized egg isn't life, but tiny bacteria that's found in space is. And I've seen things where like we value plants on Earth more than we value unborn human life. So either
Yeah,
way, they're
no
not going to
kidding.
care.
So in my mind, what abortion is really trying to get at is I want to have my fun without suffering the consequences.
And I mean, yeah, I don't think that's every single case. Like we've
No,
talked about
no,
a
not at
bunch
all.
of others. We're like,
Yeah,
that's not
there's
every
tons
single
of different
case.
circumstances.
But I definitely feel like that could be a thing that happens. And I guess the other thing is take the responsibility. So either if you're gonna get pregnant, either stay abstinent, don't deal with it, or stay abstinent and or do it safe so that you're not gonna get pregnant. Or if you get pregnant, deal with it.
Right?
I mean, it's kind
Yeah.
of
Who
blunt.
made that choice?
I mean, we're all
made-
kind of based as Christian teenage guys and we don't have like a woman to confer with as we're talking, but I don't feel like from a pro-life standpoint we've said anything that would be fully, it would be off-putting to like the pro-choice people, but I don't think we've said anything that is necessarily wrong in ethic or morals. So
Actually, I did find some data about like percentages for who gets abortions, and this is from 2015. Only 0.5% were from rape. 1 in 200. Every single other one is, well, most of them are not ready, couldn't afford it. Done having children is actually really high on the list.
That's a high one. I forgot to mention.
And
that.
then the second lowest is actually fetal health problems.
I was actually talking to one of my friends from school, and we were talking about this, and he brought up our what we talked about in our Christian music episode. God's timing is God's timing. We're talking about like resurrecting the baby, and so if they're saying it's a medical thing, it is if it's worth the mother's life or the baby's life. God's timing is God's timing. If he wants the baby to die, that's his choice. I mean, he doesn't necessarily want the baby to die, but if that's what he has planned, that's what he has planned. For us to choose, or if the mom dies, that's his plan. For us to choose when the baby dies, or like for abortion to happen, that's pretty much playing God. And I'm not going to get into it because it's a whole thing that I learned about that I'm pretty controversial on. I'm not even sure how I stand on it necessarily. But they talk about these gene editing, like they can go in and edit the genetics like during the pregnancy, or they do like in vitro and like build the egg cell or the zygote in a lab and then stick it in they surgically implant the baby and all this stuff. And our culture is so far forward that we're just trying to play God at this point.
It's not for this episode for us to discuss.
Yeah. So I guess what we're really trying to say is go pro-life if you're a Christian, or even if you're not, go pro-life because it's still a baby no matter what. And just really question your decisions in life and realize, was that necessarily the right thing to do? Look to God and seek God's guidance in everything you do.